Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
And an absolutely good morning to you. This is Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. It may be a wet day out there, but the editorial from the Island newspaper this morning makes for compelling reading. Listen up here. The knights in shining armour who vowed to slay the hydra-headed dragon of bribery and corruption and obtained a popular mandate for that purpose have now turned out to be buccaneers and defenders of rogues. They are flaying this newspaper for exposing their sordid operations. Nothing pleases us more than to get under the skin of the hypocrites in the garb of champions of good governance. And there's more. Thankfully, the COPE chairman's report has been completed at long last. It was endorsed by a majority of MPs present on Friday, but it is doubtful whether this vital document will be allowed to be made public because it reveals malpractices and irregularities of serious nature in the bond auction at issue and calls for action against the culprits as well as the recovery of losses from them, as reported last Saturday. All signs are that the government will do its damnedest to prevent the damning report from being presented to Parliament and deprive it of its credibility. The onus is on the numerous self-appointed crusaders for good governance to crank up the pressure on those they help bring to power to release the report to the public forthwith. Wonderful words, brilliantly written, well put, and well received by the public at large. On that note, let's introduce our guest this morning, the one and only Mr. Risripala. Good morning to you, Mr. Risripala Telekon.
Good morning.
And are you a self-appointed crusader of good governance?
Well, we are playing a role, we think according to our conscience, maybe that.
How come, Mr. Risripala, the truth? I thought the truth is the truth. It's black and white. You know, it's the truth. Why is it that the truth at COPE appears to be kaleidoscopic in nature? It can be green, and it could be blue, or it could be a combination of blue and red versus green. What's going on? What are they so scared of?
Very clear for us. Someone or some group, if they are hell-bound to stop the truth being coming out. That is the truth of it. And from what has happened over a period of time, now it's more than 1 year when this episode came to light, and people are waiting to find out what really happened. In authentic way, they know what has happened really, but they want it authenticated.
Indeed.
But they are not allowing that to happen. This is the exercise.
It's absolutely astonishing. It is astonishing. The Parliament, some time ago, we discussed this. There was a report. It costs something like 4.5 million rupees a day to have the Parliament. So from a purely cost exercise, the public are not getting value for money. I'm wondering whether there'll be a lawyer out there who can advise us whether we have a case to sue these people for non-delivery. They're just going there, they're shouting and they're threatening the Auditor General. What's going on? What can they do that? Can they pressure somebody to say what they want?
Cost apart, for us, the setting up of the COPE has a reason behind it. The Parliament set up special committees because when they do not want to discuss and debate an issue in the well of the Parliament with the attendance of the full parliamentarians, they confine it to a limited number of people so that they can devote more time and submit a report to the entire Parliament to consider. That whole concept is dead now. Where is it gone? This COPE committee, which is expected to submit a report in a summarized form for the Parliament to consider, having examined the evidence, having examined the documents that are available, having examined the information, so they investigated into it. They are supposed to do something, but unfortunately, unprecedentedly, I mean, the report is never coming out. and you have divisions, untold, unheard of divisions, and they are all orchestrated divisions. They are not on justifiable grounds.
Somebody said that the opinion of this government on Arjuna Mahendran, the hand-picked central banker, the man hand-picked to be the governor of the central bank, that the opinion of the government is on Mr. Mahendran is that nobody has got a patch on Arjuna Mahendran. Can that be possible?
I think some utopian thinking of that nature seems to be there, apparently, because he has been brought in and recommended by the Prime Minister himself, and it appears as if that appointment and that recognition and that recommendation has to go on at any cost. Is that what he is expecting the country to endorse? I don't think. He may get, or the authorities may get some parliamentarians to endorse that view, but it is a completely open affair in the minds of the public. They know very well who he is, what he has done, what he is responsible for, and who else is responsible for.
Obviously, the way these parliamentarians are behaving is as though they have every right and every means to pull the wool over the eyes of the public.
No, there is nothing sacrosanct about their behavior. It reveals only one thing. They have been directed to behave like that. It is not a conscientious behavior rising out of somebody's conviction or commitment. It appears very clearly, it is very clear that they have been asked or ordered to behave in that manner.
Mr. Rusipala, facts have built this program and this program has exposed those facts. So let's get to the bottom line. Tell me about COPE. When was COPE set up? When this whole notion of the parliamentary watchdog, when was it set up? How many times in the history of COPE have we had more than one report? This is like some sort of judgment where the judge, the dissenting view is also published. And what is the validity and the credibility of having more than one report? What are they taking the public for a joke? Can you first tell me about this COPE?
Yes. For us, COPE was set up on 21st of July 1979.
Right.
Under the Standing Order 126 of the Parliament. It was set up with many other committees like the Public Accounts Committee and this COPE Committee. It was one of them with a membership of 31. The quorum is 4 and they were empowered to summon anybody, call for witnesses, evidence, call for documents to be submitted, and call anyone whom they thought fit is necessary to investigate into a matter.
Right.
That was the composition and that was the basis and that was the spectrum in which they were supposed to work in Parliament.
So, is there a precedent where there is more than one?
Yes, coming to that question, I think, I'm sorry I didn't touch on it. This is an unprecedented thing. What is happening today in the COPE, in the Parliament, is totally unprecedented. It has never ever happened. We can say that very clearly. There have been issues, now say take for example in 2007. The COPE discussed the issue of the privatization of the insurance corporation. They annulled it. They said it was irregular. And in 2009, somebody went to court, Supreme Court, on that decision of the COPE, and they got the Supreme Court to annul the transaction.
That's right.
Selling of the insurance corporation.
That's right.
Then in 2012, the entire board of directors and the heads of departments and heads of the corporation, Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, was summoned before the COPE. To discuss what? On an allegation of substandard petrol or oil fuel being imported into the country, and they all, on the decision of the COP, they decided to send them home, and they reconstituted the board and the corporation. This is the history.
Yeah.
And you know, there also, if you see, there were political parties that were interested in the people whom they were investigating on. Nevertheless, they took the stand as good parliamentarians, not taking into account which party they belong to or who advocated their appointments.
It brings into question, Mr. Sripala, whether these people, these parliamentarians, elected by us out there, whether they have got a conscience. In the beginning, I've often wondered whether the parliamentarians are all a bunch of jellyfish, because as you know, jellyfish have no backbone. Jelly, yeah.
Their own behavior exposed.
So therefore, now I'm wondering whether these people have got a conscience, because surely, when it comes to talking of the national interest, you must transcend party political boundaries. You need to transcend those things and vote with your conscience. After all, what should be a greater arousal of one's conscience than the public's monies, the nation's finances?
Yes, you know, the importance of the decisions arrived at in the court. You can see the Supreme Court of the country upholds a decision or a judgment or a ruling that is given by the court. That is shown in the 2007 case, Insurance Corporation case. The person who went to courts in 2009, citing the recommendation of the court, was totally accepted by the Supreme Court of the country. What does it mean? They expect the court to be of some standard, of very high standard, high ethical standard, to deliver directives and recommendations in the national interest in a very important manner. But unfortunately, we don't see that today. They have subjugated the party, the national interest to party interests.
Indeed, and not only that, I think within the party as well to even narrower interests. It's a whole lot of protectionism that's going on.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Sripala, what are the options available? Obviously, the COPE report hasn't come out yet. We are only commenting on what MP Bima Ratnayake said, that they expect more, and Ms. Handunetti, I think, is reported somewhere. I might be wrong, but we're reporting and commenting on those matters. The fact is, though, that the COPE report isn't out yet. What do you think we'd like to see?
I think the subject matter is very clear. The findings are very clear. Papers, newspapers, media have reported it. Even this last Sunday, leading newspapers carried big articles about the recommendations that are included in the COPE report. I mean, looking at it in that perspective, we can see the agitation of the UNP members in the COPE, because it is a clear-cut conviction of the former governor of the central bank, according to what is reported in the papers and the media, and what the chairman himself has indicated in press conferences. So now, if this is going to be sort of suppressed by divisions, untold divisions, and unwanted interferences, and by resorting to submit several reports, I mean, this joke will be more than a joke for the public, because the whole world is looking at this affair.
Of course.
The IMF, the international lending organizations, the ADB, the World Bank, all these organizations are really watching what is happening.
But I am a little bit perturbed
Yeah.
by the actions of these international agencies because, to be fair, when these various transgressions and misdemeanors and out of market procedures were happening in the past, not only in the financial markets but generally, the international community made an awful lot of noise and made the life of the Rajapaksa government rather uncomfortable. Where are these people now? What are they doing? Why are they standing on the sidelines and letting these people get on with it? These people are, after all, the so-called champions of democracy and of the people. And they are doing, their actions at COPE and on this matter is anything but democratic. We have a question from, we have a statement or a question from a reader. It says here, a viewer, COPE report has been apparently leaked by a whistleblower and reproduced on a website. It has found the former governor and one company guilty and recommended criminal action against them. Is this true? Well, I don't know. It can't be because the report isn't out. But when it does come out, hopefully it will vindicate the version that has been leaked onto the website.
For us, what is important in this instance is, normally the COPE in its objectives, under its objectives, meets to discuss the financial situation, financials of state-owned enterprises.
Yeah.
But in this instance, this COPE is not meeting to discuss the financials of the central bank.
No.
This COPE is meeting for a special purpose. The Parliament recommended the investigation by the COPE to go into the bond scam. In particular, this is the first time this a thing like this is happening. Normally, the COPE, under its scope, what it does is, the Auditor General is the authority to conduct the audits of the state-owned enterprises. So those audit reports, once they are submitted, they are discussed at the COPE and investigated if necessary. They go into it further and then they give various directives. And remember, those directives, according to the rules of the Parliament, have to be observed as legally valid directives to the state-owned enterprise to which that directive is given. In this instance, you see, this is a special investigation, and the investigation was originated by a decision of the Parliament, and when that report comes out and it pronounces that somebody is responsible, somebody has to be investigated further, well, things are very bad for those people who were involved in such affairs. I think what the UNP parliamentarians some of the UNP parliamentarians in the COPE committee are trying to do is to prevent that happening. But will that happen? Will the public, will the civic society in this country, will the other organizations, will the other political parties keep quiet about this situation? I don't think. This is the beginning of the end.
Well, to me, it's the continuation of the poor governance that this country has had for a very long time indeed. And the response, the stock response from anybody in government, if you talk to them about the bond, they say, oh, it happened under the last administration. Oh, it happened. So my question is, does it make it right? Did it happen in the last lot? We don't know, because these people are wasting their time and ours by not having a proper investigation.
I'm very positive about one thing for us. This allegation about the same thing, this type of thing happening in the past is a totally false allegation. Totally false. Entirely false. If they could give an example by way of a comparison to a similar incident happening during the past regime, I'm sure they would have done it by now.
Indeed.
They have no evidence of such things happening. We, on the part of the public, for us, no evidence has been put forward by anybody alleging that such things have happened in the past. Amidst all these investigations, amidst the various committees, commissions, meeting, investigating, probing, where is the evidence for a similar thing happening in the past? No.
Perhaps it's because Arjuna Mahendran, nobody has got a patch on Arjuna.
Well, he seems to be very crafty and experienced in this type of thing, and he has maneuvered the affairs thinking that nobody will go into this. Unfortunately, it came to light.
Somebody said that he is, we don't know this because until the report comes out, and perhaps that is what it's being done to suppress. But somebody at COPE, in the previous COPE, told me that the former governor said that he was only carrying out the instructions of the Prime Minister when it came to the change of system from the so-called private placement to auction. I don't know whether he acknowledged that they had ignored the average yield, the average rate of interest in awarding the excess monies, and instead we had a situation where the bids from one company, from Perpetual Treasuries, they were awarded at the highest rate of interest on that bond issue, the 30th of February 2015. So is that what it is? Is this all an exercise to justify the actions of Mr. Mahendran? Is Mr. Mahendran able to come and tell us whether the Monetary Board of Sri Lanka met and authorized the use of or the change of the system? Was that done prior to the calling of the bond? Why don't they answer these specific questions?
I think he took to a defense, very strong defense at that, by stating to the former COPE committee that he acted carrying out the instructions of the Prime Minister. And in a way, that statement was widely reported in the press. Widely reported. Not only that, even the Prime Minister himself admitted in his statement to the Parliament. He said, I gave directions to do away with the private placement system.
Yeah.
He said, in fact, I remember media...
But this system has been in place ever since they started the bonds.
Exactly.
Under A.S. Jayawardena and so on and so forth.
Exactly, and that is a system not under A.S. Jayawardena. It is a world over accepted principle. World over.
Not hatched in the back streets of Medamulana.
Exactly. No, definitely not. Definitely not. Nothing to do with the Sri Lankan politics. It is a monetary policy that is followed in the rest of the world. We can very strongly take up that.
Not something invented by Rajapaksa.
Definitely not. Definitely, certainly not. And when, you remember very clearly, when the media people were discussing this matter, I remember somebody raising the question, how and at what forum did the Prime Minister give these instructions to do away with this private placement or so-called private placement? He has
no standing in law to do that.
Where was it done?
It is the Monetary Board that has that standing. How can he do that?
In fact, this question came up. That is why it is very intriguing as to how this originated, and definitely Arjuna Mahendran taking resort or cover under that statement is quite justified. Quite justified. Because he has to say, well, I did it because the Prime Minister wanted it done that way.
Well, in that case, perhaps he should have made a note on the notes that they have during the bond auction process, like Mrs. Seniviratne did, and she wrote there that this 10 billion was ordered by the governor, right? Like that, perhaps Mr. Mahendran should have made a note or sent a circular to his committee, the auction committee, that he is following something that has been authorized by the Prime Minister, just to cover himself later on in an eventuality like we have today. Why didn't he do that?
That's where it sounds a little fishy for us.
Well, it is very fishy because we'd like to know categorically, and perhaps the new governor of the central bank will put us out of our misery, and our suspicious nature, when we ask him, did the Monetary Board of Sri Lanka pre-authorize the change of the system? Yes or no would suffice. Over to you, Governor of the Central Bank, and Dr. Kumaraswamy. I mean, wouldn't that put to rest a lot of these suspicions?
Certainly, it has not gone through through an endorsement role in the Monetary Board. If it was, they could have brought it out at the COPE committee meeting, because that was one of the very solid defenses Arjuna Mahendran would have had to justify his action. But it did not. The fact that he did not stand on that ground shows very clearly that this directive of the Prime Minister, between him and the Prime Minister, was never brought to the notice of the Monetary Board of this country.
It was some private arrangement, some solo misadventure.
Yeah.
That's all it was, or it can be construed as that.
If you go back into the history, there have been a couple of private meetings and private discussions and private audiences where, private forums where this was discussed, the need of the money, the sudden need of more money, and with participation of people who are not supposed to be in those forums,
who traditionally have not been there.
They are. So, I mean, such
like Mr. Malik Samaravikrama, he was at a meeting where they discussed the need to have state funds and before this bond issue. And what Mr. Samaravikrama was there, he was there in his capacity as his words, not ours, advisor to the Prime Minister.
I think one thing is certain for us. This is a shameful thing that is happening in the Parliament COPE committee today. Shame is the word for it. Because the whole world is looking at this. Whole entire world is looking at our democracy. You know, we are supposed to be stepping into a new era of good governance. And I think I'll profess one thing today. If there is going to be more than 2 reports, I'm very certain that the President will step in and he will appoint the investigative committee under his authority.
And that is what we are personally looking forward to, because when we see all these palpitations going on, a boxing match going on at COPE, on what the report should or shouldn't say. After all, it's so simple. I don't know why Dr. Harsha De Silva and others can't get it. And that is, the report should only contain the truth. That's all. On that note, Mr. Rusripala Tenakul, thank you very much for being on Newsline. We appreciate your presence, and do stay safe.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you very much for being following Newsline. Do take care, and we'll see you again, same time, same place, tomorrow morning. God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.